What is up, everybody? Okay, I've got a quick thing I just want to talk about. Um, week 5 is almost wrapped up. We got the Monday night game tonight. Hopefully, the Chiefs can take the dub down in Jacksonville. All right. But through 5 weeks, there's been a theme that I've been recognizing throughout most teams, I should say, in the league, and that there's really a lot of parity right now. I think the NFL the last 5 years or so was sort of leaning towards an NBA feel of when Golden State and Cleveland were just going at it for a couple years, and really even before that, it was LeBron versus whoever for 9 years in a row or something like that. So, and it's I don't think having top heavy competition is a bad thing because you ensure you're seeing the best of the best compete, which some people love. Some people love watching two super teams battle it out. And it is great television for that one game, right? But in those years in the NBA, diminished the regular season a lot because it felt pretty irrelevant that Toronto had a win against Cleveland in the regular season because we all know Toronto is not going to the NBA finals. That's just how it was. And like I said, I think the NFL started to lean into this not on purpose, but just inevitably with the way that the Chiefs were dominating, not just in the playoffs, but the regular season throughout the last 5 years. And then there were the consistent top teams in the NFC, Philly, Detroit, San Francisco, that were always representing the top teams. And now I do think there are still those top teams. Philly is showing that it's a winning franchise. Detroit, San Francisco, they're all still winning top teams, but I don't think that they're in this elite, untouchable tier anymore where you always give them the benefit of doubt, even going against another average to slightly above average competitive team. I feel like I think a good example of this is last night's game in the New England Buffalo game, which you could put an asterisk with it because it's a divisional game and divisional opponents play each other close and they're familiar with each other, and maybe you want to use the Stephon Diggs revenge game narrative with it, which whatever. But I think the last 3 seasons, and I think even the spread represented that at 8.5 point favorite for the Bills. When the Bills, they've looked good offensively, they've been pretty explosive and productive, but the competition they've played, especially knowing now that the Ravens pretty much are just a bad team, at least defensively. I don't think it's anything shocking what they've done through 4 weeks and then up until last night. You could be impressed with the Bills, but saying that they're untouchable would just be inaccurate. And we saw that last night when two teams get on the field, anything can happen. And I think that idea is more relevant this season than it has been in any season the last 5 years. It felt like, at least from a fan perspective, right? I can't speak for any players, but it felt like a lot of times the top elite contenders, Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Lions, Philly, Niners, anytime they match up against a team that isn't in that same tier, it was a clear win, a clear W on the schedule by at least a touchdown, if not more likely more than a touchdown, 10-point, two possession victory. Almost guaranteed, it felt like. And now it feels like there really isn't that elite, untouchable tier. It feels like most every team that's competitive is in a very similar tier right now. Um, you can just look at throughout the first 5 weeks, there's been almost a different team every week claimed by the fans to be the best team in the league. After week one, it was the Packers clearing away. Even after week two, they thought Green Bay looks untouchable this year. And then they came back to earth. Tie against the they tie against the Cowboys and lose to the Browns. And then you have Buffalo through 4 weeks, who you can argue is the best team, even though defensively we know they've had some weaknesses. And then they lose to the Patriots, so can't argue they're the best team. Then you have Philly, who is the Super Bowl reigning champions, and they lose to the Broncos at home. So even just those 3 games, I guess I was talking about more than one game with the Packers. But you can take those 3 teams and the games that they've lost, or in the Packers case, tied. Any of those games the last 3 years were looked at as just there's no chance that the other team can even compete, let alone win. It felt like in these games going into it, we were just hoping for competition. Not even that the other team would have a chance, but just hoping for competition of some sort. Even if it wasn't a close score, maybe a few drives were competitive, right? But now we're getting full on games that are in the balance late. Even last week, um, when the Saints came into Buffalo and played the Bills. Now, that game, Buffalo, it did feel like Buffalo had control pretty much the whole game, but it was close in the end. Buffalo had to put them away. And I don't think that that would be the case in previous years. Now, we are still seeing some blowouts. Like the Saints, they did get blown out by the Seahawks. And the Colts have blown out the Raiders and the Dolphins. So I do think there is still a bottom tier of the league, you know, which happens. The Bengals aren't in a good situation without their quarterback. The Dolphins not looking great this year. The Jackson Dart led Giants kind of lost their spark. Uh, no Malik Neighbors, no Tracy. It's tough. You got some bottom teams in the league. That's gonna happen. But I feel like above the absolute bottom teams is a large gap, or sorry, a large group of teams that are all relatively similar in competition with each other. Probably the top third of the league is all relatively close on a game to game basis. Like in the past, we've seen wild card games that aren't close at all. Just just fresh off the mind is the New England Buffalo game when Mac Jones played in a playoff game for the Patriots. I think they lost like 50-7 or something. It was horrible. Not even competitive, right? And these are two playoff teams that we're watching, but they're just clearly in different gaps, different tiers. And then another one is the Chiefs and the Steelers played in a wild card game. I don't even know who the Steelers quarterback was. It 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 might have been Mason Rudolph. I don't think it was Big Ben. I don't know. Either way, it was not close at all. And this isn't even something that was really shocking at the time, because it really felt like even though these are two playoff teams, there is a clear difference in what these two teams can compete for. And I just don't think that's the case anymore. It really doesn't feel like that there's any clear top elite contending group that is untouchable from the middle of the pack teams. It feels like almost every squad is a middle of the pack team, you could say. Of course, there are the better teams, right? But it even though a team might be 2-3 right now going against a 4-1 team. They might be just as equally talented roster wise, coaching staff wise. It just feels like there is a very high level of competition in the league right now. And overall, I think if you ask someone, you go ask any fan, name the two teams that are going to come out of the each conference this year to compete for the Super Bowl, I think you're getting tons of different answers, honestly. Uh, from Seahawks, Washington, Tampa, Philly, Detroit, the Rams, the 49ers, like the Packers. There are so many teams. The Bears, they just came off a bye week. If they win their next game, I'm trying to think of who they play. Maybe it's the I can see it, but I can't remember. I'll just whatever. Who knows? There's too many teams right now that are all in that competitive tier, and I think especially in the AFC, this is something that's newer because I think in the AFC it was a very big difference between the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens and the rest of the teams. But now it as much as it doesn't feel like it's possible, the Colts seem legit. Like I don't think the Colts and the Steelers are quite the same. I do think the Colts are better than the Steelers. But if you're telling me that the Steelers and the Colts play on the playoffs and the Steelers win, I'm not going to be shocked. And I do expect it to be competitive too. Um, the Jags, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Patriots, the Bills. I guess the AFC North, even the Texans could make a run. They're 2-3 now. I just think there's so much depth amongst the good teams in the league that it's really hard to say there's any definitive favorite even for a path to the one seed on either side, which I think overall is a good thing for the league. Um, and it gives excitement to see the development throughout the season of where the contenders are going to land when it all plays out. Of course, I'm biased. I want the Chiefs to end up 15-2, get the one seed, which hey, it's possible. Especially after that Buffalo loss last night. That was pretty clutch, you know. New England's always doing favors for the Chiefs sometimes with the playoff scenarios. Um and I think maybe Tampa is a good one seed path out in the NFC just because they have an easy division and they're 4-1 now, but that's just from my perspective. Other people will tell you the Philly's gonna roll the table, go 16-1, and they're the one seed. I just think there's a pretty high level of competition right now in the league, and I think it's pretty cool.